This is why my channel exists, people. I've got some tea that no one else has talked about, because if you're not Gen X and if you were not raised Latter-day Saint, you didn't catch what happened today in court. You didn't. Holy moly. It's late. It's because you can probably tell I'm in a very different setup. I'm on the road. I'm at a writing conference. But I had to just get this out and recorded quickly so I could get it off my brain before I crash and then not sleep enough and then go teach in the morning, because that's how we roll. But yeah, the two witnesses I wanted to talk about very briefly are Jason and Samantha Gwilliam. Samantha Gwilliam was Tammy's sister, and she's married to Jason. So Jason is the brother-in-law. But they were tight, really close. They would move around into the same neighborhoods together with the Daybells. Jason, yes, was only a brother-in-law, but he considered Chad to be a really close friend until all of the crazy happened. Just a few highlights. I will try to make this brief because I do have to get to bed, and you probably hear I'm even losing my voice at this point. But some things that Jason mentioned in his testimony. At the funeral, right before they close the casket and then wheel it into the chapel. Traditionally, Latter-day Saint funerals, they have a little viewing beforehand, in addition to usually the one the night before. And then most people will leave and take their seats in the chapel area, while close family will stay in there with the body as they close the casket, say your final goodbyes, and then someone will give the family prayer. Often a patriarch type. It would make sense that Chad's the one who said the prayer. That makes sense. But Jason said that Chad was acting very strange, that he was rocking back and forth, all nervous and angsty, and it was awkward. He didn't seem to have, his words weren't coming, and he seemed to be trying to cry. This struck him as very odd. Now keep in mind, this Jason Gwilliam, this is the same guy who was in the car with the funeral home director who drove up to Idaho to get the body of Tammy. He actually had red flags going off left and right, and he actually proposed in the car. You may recall, he said, "Do you think that Chad might have killed Tammy?" And it was Jason in the car who said, "Absolutely not. How could you think that?" Jason has changed his mind, clearly, based on his testimony. Jason was trying to help the police find the children. All he knew is that Chad had suddenly got remarried, didn't know where he was. The police were trying to find him, and he's like, "I need to help find these children too." So when he's at the police station, he goes, "How about I try calling Chad, see if he'll answer and pick up for me?" And the police said, "Oh, that'd be great." And he goes, "Hey, would you record it?" So they played the recording today, and it's awful. He's just kind of trying to play dumb on the one hand. Of course, he didn't know what had happened to the kids at this point.
Did Chad ever ask you to do anything about this information that he'd been married?
When he did share that information with me, the one item that was a little surprising was that he asked me not to tell anybody.
Did he give you an explanation as to why he didn't want you to tell anybody?
He just said, "Don't let anyone know." And I informed them he needed to call our in-laws and let them know. And he just didn't give him information. He didn't give a reason.
So then going forward to that phone call, and you had a couple of days later, did he say anything about how his kids had reacted to the marriage?
He did.
What did he say?
He informed me that his kids knew that he was going to be getting married before he went to Hawaii.
And what was your thought at that point?
My thought was, and I did ask him, how did they keep that a secret? And one of the answers the answer troubled me, because he said, "My kids are good at keeping secrets."
Yeah. A chill went down my spine when I heard that. I just was like, oh my crap. He has gaslit his children. According to Pryor, we will hear from 3 or 4 of them. We shall find out what they have to say. But he said that Chad's beliefs started to go off the rails around 2006 or 7 when he started writing, and he confirmed what I had long suspected, and that there had been rumors about it, but he confirmed that the life-altering events that he had that were dangerous and he could have died from were not the classic near-death experience, the NDE thing of seeing the light and going to the other side. Those experiences didn't turn into that until he started writing, and then he started seeing that other people's near-death experiences were suddenly very profitable and got followers, and then suddenly those experiences were NDEs. Woo! Now, here was one thing also that Jason said that I cheered, because this is something I've been saying this entire time. If you've watched my videos, you've seen me talk about this. It's over and over again. One of the biggest things that blows my mind when it comes to how anyone was following Chad and how this was completely off the rails from a Latter-day Saint perspective, as well as everything else, is that we believe in stewardship. And he brought that up today. The whole idea that I cannot receive revelation or promptings, whatever, for my next door neighbor and what they're supposed to do with their family. My household, my family, my responsibilities, period. And so when Chad was trying to get Jason and Samantha to move with them up to Idaho, they visited because they had moved around together. They were so close. And Tammy didn't want to go, he said. Samantha was devastated because the sisters were so close. They went up to Rexburg and they said, there's nothing here for us. It doesn't feel right. And Chad's like, no. He even wrote a letter to Jason, chastising him, censuring him for not moving to Idaho because I've had visions and you're supposed to do this. And in court, Jason said, I didn't appreciate that because that's not his stewardship. I have stewardship over my family. I have responsibility over my family. He does not. And I just wanted to throw out the fireworks and cheer and say, yes, I have been saying that this entire time. Stewardship. So let's listen to that clip really quickly.
Did he say anything about concerns he might have had with your wife?
He did.
What did he say?
He'd informed me that she was allowed to go south and that the spirits, in particular the dark spirits, would allow her to go south to do whatever she wanted to do, but she was not able to come to Idaho to see the glory and the visions that would happen, and that she more or less was being held back.
What did you take that to mean?
I took that to mean that she was being controlled by dark spirits.
How did you react to him telling you that or
I wasn't
expressing that? Sorry.
I wasn't thrilled.
Why not?
Because I have a responsibility and a stewardship over my family. That's not Chad's responsibility.
Can you explain to the jury that word stewardship as you're using it? What do you mean by that?
When I'd say the term stewardship would be an ownership or a responsibility or a something of that nature, that is my duty and my job, my responsibility.
Now, you just use the word ownership. Are you suggesting that you feel like you own your family?
I wouldn't say that I own my family, but I have a responsibility to them.
Okay. Is the idea of stewardship something that is mainstream to the LDS Church?
Yes.
Why were you offended by Chad's statements about your wife and dark spirits relative to your stewardship?
I felt that he was trying to take a stewardship over my family and trying to tell us what we needed to do and where we needed to be.
So there's that. Well, that's what I've been saying this entire time. This wouldn't have happened if they had people around Chad had been like Jason. This is not your stewardship. I don't care how close of a friend or family member you are. This is not your stewardship. Back off. Love that. At one point, Chad called Jason. This is November, or either late November or early December 2019. And he said, have you been talking to Heather Daybell? And Jason's like, I barely know her. I mean, like Heather Daybell had married Chad's brother. Jason had married Chad's sister. So they were like in-laws of in-laws. Like if there was a family event that involved Tammy and Chad's kids, they would probably see each other if it was a big enough event. But they didn't know each other that well. And he said no. But Chad says that, oh, well, yeah, she's evil. And she's spreading rumors about me all around Rexburg. Which makes me go again. If you've seen my video about Heather, if people had just listened to her, she was sounding the alarm and no one paid attention. No one heard her. But yeah, if she's spreading rumors, she was telling the truth and trying to sound the alarm before things completely turned into what they are today. Not only did he blame Heather Daybell and call her evil, but we find out that he had told Jason that Lori had some kids, but they're all grown. They're grown up. We'll be empty nesters. Jason finds out about the 2 minor children that are missing, and that's when he was like, okay, so what is up? This is freaking disturbing. Oh yeah, this is cute. The other thing that he said pissed me off. Again, poor Tammy. He would like complain and whine to Jason that his life, like his marriage, is just so vanilla. You know what? Having a devoted and loving wife, I'm sorry it's not fireworks and rainbows and just jumping out of airplanes and skydiving excitement for you all the time. Life can be vanilla, you know? And Chad, you weren't much either. Look, you were the slug. So it also pissed me off when he not only calls his marriage vanilla, but then after he marries Lori, he's telling Jason, who's overwhelmed at this point and whose wife is so upset that her sister is dead and her sister's husband just remarried within like 2 weeks. And yet Chad is telling Jason, oh, Lori, she's amazing. She's 5'6", she's blonde, and she's 120 pounds. And I'm like, so her appearance is all that we're talking about. She's perfect because she's skinny and she's blonde. I wanted to go, okay, the weight thing, I'm like, Tammy was small. We know that. But she wasn't a cute little blonde that would do beauty pageants. I'm sorry that Tammy wasn't the sparkly one. But, oh, that made me so mad. Samantha got on the stand. She's one of 5 children. There were 2 daughters, 3 sons. So Tammy was her only sister. They were so close. One scary, bizarre thing that came out from her testimony was that Chad requested not to have his name on her headstone. And that is unusual. Someone like him, it's very common among Latter-day Saints especially, because family history is important, right? We like to have the records, and sometimes grave markers are a great source of those records. But oftentimes you'll have married couples want to be buried side by side, so you'll have one headstone. And so when one person passes, their information will be on one side, and then the other person will already have their name engraved. But obviously if they're still living, they'll add that after they've passed. You can tell this couple is buried here. Or it'll say, wife of so-and-so, husband, whatever it is. But he did not want his name on her headstone. And that reminded me a whole lot of when he deleted the family photo album and replaced it with his Hawaii wedding pictures with Lori. It's like he's just wiping things away as if they'd never existed. One thing that she mentioned that I thought, oh, okay, Chad was trying to learn and be smart. He's not smart, as we know, but he was introducing Lori to the family, to Jason, trying to keep it a secret, but, to those who knew, as Lori Ryan. And I think this may have been because Brandon Boudreaux's ex-wife, Natalie, found out about Melanie's full name, looked her up and went, oh my gosh, you've married into the Cycle family and all of that. So you see one of my previous videos on all of that craziness. So I have a feeling that they were like, oh, if we have her go by Lori Vallow, and she's not Daybell yet, but Vallow, they can Google that and find out about Charles. So let's not do that. And then the attempted shooting of Brandon. So we'll just call her by her previous husband's name, husband number 3 for counting, Joe Ryan. So she hadn't been Lori Ryan in some time, a long time, over a decade. But, sure, let's do that. Because that makes sense. In July of 2019, Samantha says things were getting really weird. Chad was acting very distant. Now we know that was when things were really ramping up because Charles died in July, same month. And the affair had been going on for months before that. But apparently Chad and Tammy came into town, into Springville, Utah, and it was Samantha's birthday. She didn't know they were in town, and that was odd, because Tammy would normally tell her. So, and then it was late at night. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and someone's banging on the door. And Tammy is known to not be a night owl. She would go to bed early, even as a kid. So 10 o'clock, she's in bed. So they come out. She answers the door to find her sister there. visiting. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're here. What? And she's like, yeah, I have a birthday present for you. Can't stay though, because Chad's in the car waiting for me. So she basically hands over this birthday present to Samantha. Chad's in the car, hands her the gift over to Samantha, goes back into the car, and then they drive away. Happy birthday, close sister who I love and my husband won't let me be with and talk to. The more we learn about how Chad treated Tammy and what kind of husband he was to her, the more angry I get. For those who don't know, the Chad and Elena story, or the James and Elena story, those were two names of those are some of their aliases for their previous lives. So James was one of the apostles. Yes, that apostle. And apparently Elena, his wife, was Jesus's niece. Okay. And then James was made bishop of Jerusalem by Jesus. Anyway, there's so many bizarre things. But so since Chad likes to think that he and Lori have been married multiple times across many different lives, and they have to find each other every time or whatever. So he was writing up their story in this life via text, supposedly kind of like a romance novel, but it's so bad. It is so bad. Okay, and here's one of Chad, clearly again being narcissistic and basically part of the dark triad.
James's spirit was so excited at this revelation that he shattered a thick veil that had been placed between these two souls during their mortal lives. The thick veil had been placed because of the unique, unparalleled love James and Elena had shared in previous lifetimes. That veil had prevented them from finding each other until this appointed day that would be remembered throughout the heavens as the true beginning of a spectacular mission that would save millions of souls and defeat the forces of darkness.
Okay, and just on a slightly lighter note, this is the tea that you only get and you only understand right here, the Gen X Latter-day Saint. So, little bit of foundation. In the 1970s, there was not a lot of Latter-day Saint themed art, whether it's music or film or plays or whatever. Books. A lot of that has definitely changed in the last 40 plus years. But there's a man named Alexta Azevedo, and he wrote a musical called Saturday's Warrior. And the idea behind it, Latter-day Saint family in San Francisco in the 70s, when there was the whole zero population movement, and their son starts getting into the bad crowd because he finds out, his teenage boy finds out his mom is pregnant again, and how embarrassing is that? And all these different things. And there's this whole, the idea is that like the pre-earth life is we're waiting to come down and be born. Like our families were already predetermined. There's so much just speculated stuff that he made up. A lot of people think it's like doctrine, but it's not. But there's like the little sister who's wanting to come down, and that's the daughter that's supposed to be born that mom's expecting. And come on, Jimmy, I'm waiting to come down, and you love me. And like she's trying to talk to him from before she's born. So it's a very cheesy show. You can actually look up segments of it. They call it a movie in 1989, where it's basically just a filmed version of the play. With sets, no audience, but sets. It's super cheesy. They actually made an actual film of it maybe 5+ years ago. Haven't seen the actual film, but it's, from what I understand, it's set in the 70s still, and all the songs and all that. There's a whole romantic plot line in there about a girl, and she sends him off on a mission, and she's promised to marry him when he gets back, but then 3 days before the wedding, she freaks out. And, oh, mom and dad, I just can't marry him. Something's wrong. And then you find out that she's supposed to marry this guy that, ironically, of course, her boyfriend taught and been baptized. But because she knew him in the pre-earth life, and he promised to find each other on earth. So you take the idea of knowing each other in the pre-earth life. Chad likes to take any kernel of it, whatever, and go off in weird places with it. We've just seen that. So if he took one of these songs, well, just listen to it. That the song is, all of that to say this song has nothing to do with reincarnation or multiple probations. It's talking about people who are spirits who have not yet been born to have bodies. And Lex de Azevedo making up stuff about his speculation on what that means, and promises people made to each other that they can't possibly keep because we have no memory of those times. Essentially, Chad plagiarized. So this is where Gen X Latter-day Saint comes in. So just this, so we have FBI tactical specialist Heinemann, I think her name is, reading part of it.
He had heard that voice before and seen that smile before. He felt they had even talked like this before. But who could be certain when?
Okay, now here's the song.
I've seen that smile somewhere before.
I've heard your voice before.
It seems we've talked like this before. Sometime who can be certain when?
But if I knew you then, it's strange I can't remember.
So if you didn't quite catch it, so let's look at the words. So he says he had heard that voice before, seen that smile before. He felt that they had even talked like this before, but who could be certain when? And the lyrics to the song, I've seen that smile somewhere before. I've heard your voice before. It seems we've talked like this before sometime, but who can be certain when? It's almost verbatim. He's just put we and they in place of I and that kind of thing, and then switched up a couple of other verbs and filler things, but yeah. And the funny thing is that, so the very next line, after this part of the song says, feelings come so very strong. I think Chad's a fan of Saturday's Warrior, and so yeah, not only is he a crappy writer and a crappy human being, but he's a plagiarist. So I thought that was hilarious, and I thought I would just share that part because, oh man, the more I learn about him, the more I think, oh, he's a freaking turdball, and yeah, he deserves everything. He deserves it all, and hopefully the jury will agree. So anyway, that's a little bit of sweet in the middle of the bitter, and go get yourself some more.